Hey folks, Alcris here with another test patch review for Old World, this time for test patch 62.59.4, released on August 31st, 2022. Overall, this is a pretty small and straightforward test patch. The biggest change is this change to Fortification. Fully fortified units will now do melee counterattack, each fortify step costing an order. So I'm here in a game in a hot seat playing against myself, just to show how this works. So if I fortify here, you'll see that this now fills up 1 out of 4. And if I were to attack, I would actually remove 1 point of that fortification, and nothing would happen. So I'll undo that and end turn. We'll let the fortification stack up, back up some more. Almost there. All right, it's now fully fortified, so you can see it now has this extra bar around the fortification. If I attack, I will take the damage I would have taken. So had that attacked me, so I get full counterattack damage. But here, on Grease's turn, this militia can attack. It removes a stack of fortification and takes full damage. And then this can easily attack like that. And that removes another stack of fortification. So I brought a slinger here, just to illustrate what happens. If I attack with the slinger, it doesn't take a stack of fortification. Even if I'm in melee with the slinger, it doesn't counterattack. Whereas if I were attacking with a warrior, the warrior would take it. So that's how the new fortified mechanic works. It does take a turn to restack. So if I attack here and then swap over to Egypt, I hover over here, I see -1 fortified units because it's not fully fortified. It hasn't retaken that stack. I end turn. Now it's fully fortified, so I don't have that -1 fortified. So it essentially eats 5 orders and gives you 1 free counterattack, which is kind of nice. Obviously, a tactician is going to be better if you have a tactician general. That gives you full counterattack during melee and doesn't require the fortify. But this is a nice little change. Additional changes, it's now possible to ask your tribal ally to declare war on another player. That's pretty good. I think that's more of a bug fix. Reduce the number of orders generated by decree. So decree 1 now gives 3. This used to be 6. Decree 2 now gives 6. This used to be 8. Decree 3 now gives 9. This used to be 10. And decree 4, if you have a legendary city, gives 12, just as it did before. Religion heads will now be replaced when their nation is eliminated, so you won't have a religious head of a nation that's no longer in the game. And you can now influence religion heads if you're in contact with their nation. Some adjustments for Victory Campaign for Greece Campaign 5. Reduce the event level in learning to play scenarios. Adjusted MP map dimensions, so single player and multiplayer maps have identical city site capacity, so the size is more consistent across gameplay mode. Really excited to see this change. Essentially, it means that no longer are multiplayer maps a little more dense. In fact, all maps now have the same density. It's a little more spread out. So I think that'll be good because it was a little crowded, especially on some multiplayer maps where you had a lot of city sites close together, especially if you were playing on a high level of barbarians or tribes. It could be challenging. And this, I think, simplifies the game in terms of like city sites are always the same distance apart instead of having a silent option between the two. And now there's a drop down to give players more flexibility how map size is generated. You'll see here, if you drop down map aspect ratio square, the map height is 100% of the map width. Wide, in other words, the map is wider. That's probably better for a 2-player game. You want to have a little more distance between. Or dynamic, it changes with the number of players on each team. So here I've generated a dual map with the square aspect ratio. You can see I spawn at tile around 4019, and my opponent's capital spawns on the mirror of that, which is over here, somewhere around 1819, so about 20 tiles apart, and the map is a square. I go ahead and change that to wide and create the game. You see the map has the same number of tiles, but now it's much wider. I'm spawning at 5118. My opponent is spawning around 2218, so we're about 30 tiles apart, which is a lot better for a single player game. You're not starting as close together and the map is kind of squished. You've got a little more space. So love having this option. Personally, I like the wide map setup for multiplayer duels. Additional changes, achievements to learn to play by playing scenario, some improvements, some AI changes, AI changes and UI changes. It is also worth noting, this was a data mine thing from Xiao Mao. Thanks for posting this in the Discord. Biremes, triremes, and dromons, the boats, in other words, no longer get the coastal movement speed bonus from their own coastal waters. Small change, but it makes boats a little slower when they're in their own waters, so they don't sort of double dip. I mean, they're already on the ocean. There's no reason why they would go faster by the coast. All right, pretty straightforward patch. The biggest thing I think is that fortified change, which is kind of nice if you don't have a tactician general available and you want to have units in the front line. Makes them a little tankier, helps defense a little bit without being overly strong. In other words, especially since you have to remove a stack each time you attack with a melee unit, so it can be a little better, potentially at holding choke points. All right, have a great afternoon, evening, or morning, depending on where you are.